Are the New York Giants signing Gabe Davis in NFL free agency? Well, we're going to break that idea down on today's show as multiple Giants insiders and beat reporters have really started to connect the dots of Gabe Davis, former Bills wide receiver, and the New York Giants. With head coach Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen, who have ties to Buffalo, could they be looking to sign their former wide receiver? We're going to break that down. You're watching Giants Now by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Marshall Green. But first, I got to let you guys in on a little bit of a secret. It is competition month here at Chat Sports, and we've been doing a month-long subscriber battle against the Dallas Cowboys report, and we've made up a lot of ground. But we're just a couple of subscribers away. Only a couple of days left in January. Help us beat the Cowboys. If you hate the Cowboys and you're looking for free, informative, entertaining content on Big Blue all year long, subscribe to the channel right now. Alrighty, Ryan Dunleavy, who is a Giants insider, posted this on Twitter. This is when the Buffalo Bills lost in the playoffs earlier this year, and you see Gabe Davis, who did not play in the playoffs, kind of getting into somewhat of a shouting match with some Buffalo Bills fans. Then you see Ryan Dunleavy say, Gabe Davis is a free agent who is certain to be on the Giants' radar, finished the season injured. Also, Connor Hughes, who covers the Giants, said this about Davis. If the Bills' cap issues send Gabe Davis to the open market, then the Giants should be among the first to call. So you've got Connor Hughes. You've got Jordan Renan has talked about it on his podcast, as well as Ryan Dunleavy. And I understand why they're saying that. The Giants need a big play wide receiver on the outside. The Giants this year were ranked at the bottom of the National Football League in terms of creating big plays overall as an offense, but also in the passing department. And that's why when you look up the Giants receiving leaders for this past year, the stats are awful. Darius Slayton led the way with 50 catches for 770 yards and just 4 touchdowns. Then you had second-year player Wan'Dale Robinson, who I'm actually a big fan of, and I think he's a pivotal piece to this offense operating out of the slot. In his second year, he only gave you 60 catches for 525 yards. Jalen Hyatt, somewhat of a disappointing year, did not score, did not even top 400 yards, only 23 catches. And then Isaiah Hodgins, probably the biggest question mark as to why his production dropped off. And look, I just want to make sure it is clear. I understand that with a limited amount of time to throw, for whether it be Daniel Jones, Tyrod Taylor, or Tommy DeVito, it's going to be tough for a wide receiver to work out there. And the Giants, they really felt that. They were last in almost every single offensive statistic. And if you're going to make plays downfield, it does start up front. But you also need athletes, and you also need big-time players that have a history of making big-time plays play outside the numbers. And that is exactly what Gabe Davis has been the moment since he stepped into the National Football League in 2020. The guy hasn't averaged less than 15.7 yards per catch. Last year, 16.6. Well, this most recent year, 2023, 16.6 yards per catch. In 2022, it was 17.4 yards per catch. Davis has been the go-to deep threat for Josh Allen as they've worked together in Buffalo. And I thought they were on pace to have their best year this year, but then it kind of slowed down. The offensive coordinator changed some things in Buffalo. He still finished with 750 yards and 7 touchdowns. And he's had some big-time moments in some big-time games. Everyone remembers what Gabe Davis did in the playoff run of 2021 when him and Josh Allen were dominant against Kansas City. The guy had 10 receptions for over 240 yards and 5 total touchdowns in just 2 games played in that postseason run. Last year in the postseason, 8 more grabs, 150 more yards, and a touchdown. 21 yards per catch, 24 yards per catch, 18.4 yards per catch. And that's why I'm a fan of Davis. And he's also going to be just 25 years old in the month of April. 6'2", 210 pounds. He's a guy that can stretch vertically. He's also someone that's sneaky, in my opinion, especially at the top of his route. We've seen him drop some defenders and create some separation in those moments. But it's not going to be cheap to sign him. Pro Football Focus thinks it could cost you up to $12 million for just 1 year of service. 1 year contract, $12 million, $8 million guaranteed. That is what Pro Football Focus and the gentleman over there have projected for his contract. That's a lot of money. A lot of money for a guy that's never gone over 1,000 yards, that's never had more than double-digit touchdowns. And to be honest with you, nothing more than a number 2 in a Buffalo Bills wide receiver core who at times have left a lot to be desired. So I want to ask this question before I share my opinion. Should the Giants sign Gabe Davis. If you were the general manager of this football team, would you sign Davis in free agency? Type S for sign, type P for pass. I want to hear from all the real ones down in the comment section right now. For me, I absolutely like the idea of signing Davis in free agency. I would go as far as to say I'm a fan of his game. And I also appreciate the relationship side of this business. Gabe Davis knows what it's like to play for Brian Daboll. And if there's anything we've learned within the past 35, 40 days, is that Brian Daboll, and you may already have known this, is a little bit of a hothead. He's a little bit of an asshole. He's kind of hard to work with. You've heard that from Wink Martindale, who's left. You've heard that from Mike Kafka's people. You've heard that from the running back coach that left last year. A lot of people don't like working for Brian Daboll. At least that's what it sounds like. And Gabe Davis knows what it takes. And if he were to sign here, that would tell me that he liked working for it. That's why it makes a lot of sense. And Joe Schoen, the general manager of this football team, he's talked about in free agency, he likes signing players that he has a prior relationship with, that he knows. And he does that with Davis. As the assistant general manager of Buffalo, you know all the ins and outs of this person as well as a football player. And that'll help make it easier for you to sleep at night if you're willing to go 1 year, $12 million. Because you know what type of person is. You know how he shows up to work. You know how he is in film study and meetings and stuff like that. That makes a lot of sense. For me, I'll let you know in a second. But we're going to talk about some free agent wide receivers as well. Is Davis the top guy on my list that I want the Giants to sign? He's up there. I like what he brings. He's explosive. There's also some other guys in free agency I would like to sign, maybe a little bit more than Gabe Davis, and you're probably only going to get one of these fish. We'll talk about that. But first, I got to give a huge shout-out to today's sponsor, Factor. Shout out to Factor for sponsoring today's show. When you go to factormeals.com/GiantsChat50 and use that promo code GiantsChat50, Factor is going to hook you up with 50% off. Look, guys, if you've tried the whole meal prepping thing and you still ended up spending money on takeout, you still ended up going to the grocery store and stuff like that, give Factor a try. Fresh, never frozen options for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And if you're looking to continue your keto diet, they have that. If you're looking for a low-calorie type of diet and meal plan, they have that vegan, veggie, high protein as more fresh, never frozen meals that take just 2 minutes in the microwave to hook up. They show up directly to your door. I am a fan of Factor. I'm a really big fan of the options that they have for breakfast as well as the smoothies they have. The strawberry banana smoothie is my go-to. You guys should check them out. You get to pick your pre-made meals, which are prepped and cooked to perfection. You heat them up, you eat them, and I promise you, you're going to enjoy them. That's factormeals.com/GiantsChat50. And remember to use that promo code GiantsChat50 and save yourself 50% off. I'll put all that information and make the link clickable down in the comments and description. For me, last thing on Gabe Davis really is I don't love paying him $12 million for one season. When you take a look kind of just at the Giants' current salary cap situation, they're projected to have around $25 million in cap space. And with one of those one-year deals, you're pretty much taking the entire cap hit that year unless you're going to stretch it into the future. And I don't really see Joe Schoen as that guy. He hasn't been that guy, particularly on one-year deals. So simple math, you have about $25 million. You're going to cut Gawinski. You'll save 50. So it'll be closer to 55, excuse me. It'll be closer to 30. I still don't like it. And when I look at the other crop of free agents, I think there's other people on this list at a similar price point that would help this team and honestly are just better options. I think T. Higgins, Mike Evans, and Michael Pittman are all better, but at the end of the day, the Giants are not in that type of market. They're just window shopping on those wide receivers. They're not going to pay a wide receiver $20+ million. I'm not all that interested in Marquise Hollywood Brown. The Giants, they kind of have that in Jalen Hyatt. I don't want to go for another small, undersized, deep threat receiver. Calvin Ridley, big fan of his. I think he fits this offense perfectly. Darnell Mooney, I also am a fan of his. I know he hasn't had the type of production that he would have liked over the last couple of years with Chicago, but very similar to the Giants offense with the Bears offense. When there's not a lot of production, there's not going to be a lot of nice and sexy stats for players. We've talked about Gabe Davis. You guys know Odell Beckham Jr. Tyler Boyd is a big slot receiver. Giants already have their slot receivers with Wan'Dale Robinson and Darren Waller. And Curtis Samuel, I like the idea of him, but the Giants going to pay another gadget guy a lot of money in free agency. So if it's not any of these guys, which it might just be a couple of those guys, who should the Giants look to sign? I think they need a guy that can play all over the football field. A wide receiver that can line up outside, can get in the slot, and he can beat you at all three levels. They have too many gadget guys. Jalen Hyatt, take the top off the defense. Wan'Dale Robinson, your slot receiver. How about a guy that could do absolutely everything? That's Calvin Ridley. He is my number one free agent wide receiver target. Calvin Ridley, I know he's a little bit of a gambler, got suspension. This dude is an absolute beast. The year prior to being suspended with the Atlanta Falcons, I thought he was a top 5, top 6 receiver in this year, in this league. And then just after missing, 15, 16 games of football, he comes back, gets you 76 grabs, over 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns. He could do it everywhere. Pro Football Focus, they know how good of a player is, and that's why they're projecting him to sign a 2-year, $32.5 million deal. About $16 million each season. Look, it costs if you want to have a big receiver on your team. And Calvin Ridley, I think he could help a lot. I would be in on this contract for Ridley. I would go as far as to say is a perfect receiver for a Brian Daboll offense and the type of receiver that Joe Schoen has talked about wanting. Darnell Mooney, kind of a little bit of a cheaper option than Calvin Ridley. Not Calvin Ridley at all. Not trying to make that type of comparison. But he could do a lot of the similar things that Ridley can do. At 5'11", 175 pounds, he's definitely smaller, but he's every bit, if not more, explosive and athletic. He had a 1,000-yard receiving season a couple of years ago. The dude's a beast. 1 year, $9 million. I like that a little bit more than Gabe Davis. Some other lower-level free agent targets, if you're not trying to spend all that money in one place, you got a guy like Kendrick Bourne. Don't love that he's coming off a couple of serious injuries, but he was clearly the number one wide receiver for the Patriots this year. He's a good football player, and I believe the Giants had interest in him last offseason. Another receiver the Giants had interest in last offseason is DJ Chark. Chark played for the Panthers this year. Had to work around pretty much a bad team, similar to the Giants, but we know what he could do. He is explosive. He could take the top off the defense. One catch from him can change a game. Very similar to what I would say Darius Slayton type of receiver. If you want to go the old veteran route, hoping to tap in to a player that you can get back to maybe his type of production, what about Michael Thomas? I think his best days are behind him. Wouldn't mind looking at him, seeing maybe what he could bring to this team, talking to him in free agency, but nothing more than a 1-year deal for him is anything that I think Joe Schoen would pursue. Now you're getting into the bottom level of these wide receivers. KJ Osborne, we've shown you 10, and now we're on to 14 and 15. There's not many elite guys left. Osborne, I've always been a fan of in Minnesota. He is not a game changer. He is a wide receiver 3. Good player, not a great player. I did like what I saw from Noah Brown this year with the Houston Texans. C.J. Stroud made it easy on a lot of those wide receivers down in Houston. But Brown's a good player. He's got speed. He could stretch the field vertically. I'd be interested in him. Got a little bit of a drop issue, but overall, I think he's a good football player, and you're talking 1 year, $2, $3, $4 million per year. I'd be interested in signing Brown. Giants have to sign at least one wide receiver. They have to add to this room. I would actually like to see them draft a receiver and draft and sign one. But who is the question? That's what I'm going to ask you right now. Name a wide receiver you want the Giants to sign. Top of the list for me is Ridley. Then I got Darnell Mooney, and then maybe Gabe Davis would probably be 3 on there for me. I'd probably go back and forth with Davis or Mooney. 2 different type of players, but both really good at what they do. I want to hear from the real ones, though. Let me know what you think. And make sure to give me a follow over on social media. I'm trying to grow my new Instagram, posting videos about the Giants as well as the New York Knicks pretty much every day. So give me a follow on Instagram, @MarshallGreen_. If you're on the Twitter or the X, give me a follow over there as well, @MarshallGreen_. Both handles are the same. And we'll be back with a video on the channel tomorrow. Until then, let's go Big Blue.